What is it about the DMT experience that won't make people shut up about it? I'm included in this group of people. I'm going to give a little bit of a high level kind of aesthetic description compared to a lot of the other entheogens that are out there. What it is about DMT specifically for me, from my experience, that really makes it stand out. Not just stand out, but really fuck with your head. There's a whole ocean of entheogens out there. And, from my experience, there's been, kind of connection with most of them. And that connection is that no matter how profound or abstract or, quite honestly, life-changing some of the experiences have been, everything's always felt kind of organic. What I mean by that is, when you've come back, sometimes from a really just bizarre experience, I kind of somersaulted through space and time and experienced like all consciousness, lived inside the Earth's crust. I've been reborn. The amount of like bizarre, crazy experiences and abstract landscapes, flown on a laser beam to the source of all like creation. And that does sound mental, I know. But even when you kind of come back and you've really had to like grapple with what it is and what does it mean, and you've integrated it, I've never had a problem with the experience per se. And what I mean by that is like how it was delivered to me. And regardless of the compound, this could be LSD, ketamine, psilocybin, whatever it is. And, even the most crazy experiences, like complete, like destruction of ego and just existing as pure energy and spirit of all humans or whatever it may be. When you've kind of come back and integrated and kind of thought about it, and it could be weeks, months later, whatever. It's always felt like, wow, that's an incredible experience. That compound took me somewhere in my mind. That compound allowed me to experience something that's in my mind. Like, it's always clear, it's never been in question that it was not natural and it's not a brain sourced phenomenon. What I mean by that is like if a scientist said what you're experiencing is a result of XYZ neurotransmitters or compounds interacting with these parts of the brain and doing this, when it's explained to you and your visual cortex was doing this and your memory systems are doing that, and you'd kind of go, yeah, okay, it's an abstract realm. I'm living through archetypes and abstract sort of memories or whatever it may be, but it feels organic, it feels natural, it feels of my mind. I feel as if I have experienced some way of experience in my mind. And even when things have been like really out there, like, you're experiencing some sort of interfacing with the universe and all creation. Now that really does make you scratch your head and you think, how do I have this inside my head? But it's the content. The content is what's crazy, it's what's strange. So, the answer is, well, it is in your head. But again, this is not the framing of the experience. It's the framing that's always consistent. It's beautiful, it's colours, it's fractals or, beautiful mosaics. And it's always just this, it feels as if, my visual system is just kind of in overdrive. And maybe it's like that psilocybin kind of, kaleidoscopic imagery, or, lasers of, beautiful shining lasers of sound and whatever it may be. I mean, it can just be the most beautiful, abstract, stunning visual imagery. But again, when it's over, all said and done, you think to yourself, wow, the brain is incredible. And these compounds can open up this experience in a profound way. But what about DMT? I'm not going to go into specific details about particular experiences, encounters, or any sort of details about, what I've experienced with DMT. What I want to do here is give this more of it's a high level kind of aesthetic description as a comparison against other entheogens from my experience. I'd like to think, or hope to think, that people who have had these experiences will agree. So let me know. I'll be really curious to hear. But so in terms of like everything I talked about there, no matter how abstract a lot of these other compounds, the visions and the experiences they offer you, it has always kind of felt, in terms of the framing of the experience, has felt understandable from what I've ingested and how I've experienced it. I think just to add to that, there's also this quality of like things can seem kind of dreamlike, especially when the ego kind of really disappears. I find it particularly with a really strong ketamine experience. You do not exist. You're just pure awareness, and even if you are experiencing connection to the entire universe, it's not you exactly. It is just this awareness, and sometimes you literally are everything and everyone. So I think that's a very common experience, and a very, very like high dose, powerful, entheogenic experience. That is a common theme. But regardless, coming back to reality, it's often things felt dreamlike, and when you were there, you weren't there exactly. So what's the difference with DMT? First of all, I'd say I think I really feel as if there feels like there's layers to the experience, and as crass as it kind of feels, like it does seem to be dose dependent. It's kind of the case with everything, I guess, and I think it's one thing that always kind of really undermines any kind of entheogenic journey to me, is that it's just like doing more just makes the experience deeper or more profound. But I'm trying to be a scientist about it, and if it is all just some illusion, or it is just doing something in the brain, then fair enough, it's dose dependent. But yeah, just like with a lot of the other compounds we talked about, the higher the dose, then sometimes it is a more intense experience. But again, the framing of it seems consistent. DMT is different. So at kind of like regular dose, where any sensible person would say give it a go, you are instantly transported to another landscape. I think what's particularly interesting about DMT compared to a lot of the other entheogens is that it's less dreamlike and less intense in terms of it feeling like another world. And what I mean by that is I am there. Very much so. As I am in this room, I am there. And it is quiet, and I can look around, and quite often I feel as if I am in a room. This space, I kind of call it like the waiting room. I know a lot of, famous dabblers with DMT, have their own ways of describing this, this environment and all the sort of layers and stuff. But again, I can only talk from my experience. But this kind of like waiting room is bizarre. It's strange. I think if you've never had any kind of like profound psychedelic experience, then this would just blow your mind, perhaps. But it's kind of static. It's beautiful. It's exquisite colors. There's a lot of tessellation and ornate kind of geometric shapes. To me, it's here there's a lot of like beautiful imagery. You think Egyptian gods, Hinduism. You think of like inside of like a beautiful mosque. There's always kind of like imagery, which obviously does beg the question, like, why? We'll get into that. But it's a beautiful room, and I keep saying room because it does, for me, it always has felt like a reasonably consistent space. Even from the very, very first time I ever tried DMT, and I instantly was dropped into this space. It was pretty much a similar experience. I was in a space that was, not the size of a football field, but, larger than a typical room in a house, Could you say I was like a tennis court? Yeah. I'd probably say like I always end up in a space that feels like the size of a tennis court. But, it's more like coming on the inside of a dome, and it's just exquisite colours and beautiful, like tessellated imagery on the wall. I mean, it's just like, it's abstract. I mean, if someone told you're in a sort of, and if you were being held by an alien species in an abstract space, because they live in another dimension, then you'd 100% believe it. It is, it's not of this world. But regardless, it's for me, it's felt quiet, calm, and bizarre. Now, as that kind of dose increases, let's say you double that, and now we're talking about, if you were to look online and someone was to say this is a high dose, this is where things start to change a little bit. And this is where we kind of really deviate from the classic kind of entheogenic experience from my experience, because there appears to be some sort of intent starts to develop. What do I mean? Well, the most noticeable thing here is what you've heard about in terms of entities. What are people talking about? What is an entity? I think the reason why it's such a vague term is because, from my experience, there's been different types of entity. That's because in this waiting room space, and even at quite high dose, there definitely is a lot of interaction with things. My very, very first experience, I sort of fell into that beautiful kaleidoscopic dome environment. Instantaneously, I was confronted with creatures that were coming towards me. They were really sort of pleasant. They were sort of giving me love as they came towards me, but it was just like, why is everyone looking at me? It's just like, what? I'd never experienced anything like that. Years later, and I've had experiences that have gone way beyond that, but even to more recently, when I have been in that waiting room space, it's the attention on you that's so bizarre. These entities, and whatever they may be, sometimes it could just be let's just say a beautiful sort of sculptured sort of image of a face. Maybe it's like like an Egyptian god is looking at you and is communicating with you. That's what's so creepy about it, because again, from other compounds, you kind of interface with kind of people and things, and you can have a kind of you can communicate in a way with things and people, but this is like you're in their space, like you're in their room, and it's like when you get to a certain level, it's like they've all just gone, oh, you're here. I mean, it's like a scene out of a movie. And all of a sudden you're just like, everything's coming towards you. How can we help you? Oh, you'd like to come in here, would you? It really does feel like that. It's like you're trying to get into some cool club, or you want to get into the VIP section, and all of a sudden everyone's just like, well, who are you exactly? And what qualifies you to come into this place? Now, in this kind of waiting room space, even at quite high doses, like I say, I've had kind of strange interactions with these people. I'm not going to lie. For me, they're always aliens, okay? So I know people say entities, this, that, and the other, and maybe that's a cultural thing, but they're just 100% aliens to me. Like, just literally, these are aliens. And, even in that space, these aliens have shown me strange artifacts or rules and all sorts of bizarre like templates and kind of like schematics for things. I mean, it's really hard. I've never really understood what they're trying to show me, what it's about. But it has felt kind of guarded or distant in that space, but they're kind of looking at me and engaging, and it's always felt like we're kind of in dialogue, like, am I okay here? Can I proceed? And trying to kind of explain something to me. So when we kind of really go beyond this, this is like where we get to it. This is where, you know, the script really flips. Because at like high doses, and again, I don't recommend this to people, but let's just say you Googled it and it said this is a high dose. Double that. Woo! Shit gets crazy. And not crazy in the way you think. Because this is, for me, the single thing that just completely just blows my mind. And I think this is why people cannot quite get their head around this. Because again, that waiting room is just a beautiful space, yeah? It's that typical kind of like, you know, patterns and colours and meaning and, okay, there's some entities when you start getting a little bit, you know, up the dosage. It's a little bit strange. Why are these people looking at me? What's going on here? You know, why am I so calm and lucid, present here? For me, hurtling through this, and so sometimes just completely bypassing the waiting room. Yeah, okay, it can kind of feel like a sort of rushing. You know, I've heard people even explain it, like it feels like you're bursting through. I wouldn't say it's that intense though, it's not like a rocket ship. For me, it's just like standing in a room. Quiet. There's walls, there's a floor, there's a ceiling. Someone standing in front of me. 2 meters in front of me. They're not even looking at me. I can hear my breath. I reach out, touch the wall. I can feel the wall. It's an alien. He looks at me. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but that was the beginning of my first true breakthrough. You know, years later, having kind of been in that space a lot and had experiences even more kind of life-changing, and I will get into these, promise you, but it's a whole video just to describe possibly, you know, one of those really game-changing experiences. But what I'm getting at here is just like, what? What's this? It's so left field. Yeah, imagine, you expect to be like hurtling through space and time. I want to stand in awe at the creator. You know, like beautiful geometric patterns and lasers and prisms. Yeah, I want to experience the love of my mother. I want to feel all nature and humanity. Whatever it is. Give me everything. Wait, what? I'm going to stand in a room and an alien's going to stand in front of me? I'm sure we're all Matrix fans. And, you know, for the longest time, Neo had to get to the source. And I remember when he got to that door, and yeah, you're thinking, ooh, what's going to happen? This is going to be crazy. What's the source? And I remember when he opened that door and walked into the room, I was just like, what the fuck? What's this? Now I get it. I think those writers, they know. It's the best, like, it's the closest I can get to explaining what this experience is like. When most other entheogens for me have been, you know, a water park or, I don't know, warp speed through, you know, the galaxy or whatever, you name it, you know? That beautiful neon forest. This is Neo meeting the architect. It's quiet, it's calm, you're face to face. For me, it's been one-on-one, and you get a message. And what you're told is extremely, extremely hard. to integrate. I'm always in two minds about these, talking about this too much. I was extremely lucky that the first time I ever had DMT experience, I went into it completely naive. It was a spontaneous, opportunistic moment, and I got to see what I saw, and I later found out that that's a thing, which obviously blew my mind. So I'm always a little bit sad when people kind of hear these things before they have the experience, because I think they'll always have a tiny bit of doubt that it kind of implanted the idea in their head. And I keep hearing people argue that, but it's bullshit, because I have proof. But for me, just it's that one thing. It's like the intent behind this experience, the framing of it, the process of moving you into a space which is like a constructed environment for a human to be looked in the eye by somebody with seems to be present and intelligent, and to be then communicated with very clearly, lucidly, like the most profound kind of messages that are obviously kind of confusing and hard to understand in some sense, but not to understand, but hard to take on board. But it leaves you sort of thinking like, right, this is something else. So this obviously begs the question, what the hell is this? Obviously, I don't have the answer. But when you compare this to all the other entheogens and all the other experiences that are out there, I'm not saying I had them all, I had my fair share, and this stands completely alone. You can't help but feel like this intent cannot be just a pure coincidence. Like the framing of the experience, the aesthetics of it, the environment, the engagement with an anthropocentric being, the message. It's like, come on, man. This is too weird. This is like a script. And then that is like a little clue there. Because as you integrate this, and you really do have to integrate this, my most profound experience, like the most powerful vision, I hate to say vision, but whatever, experience. I mean, probably a year, easily a year of deeply thinking about that experience every day. It was on my mind for a long, long time. It still is, but it's like the intensity of how much it changed my life has started to, I've integrated it. I'm here talking about it, so it's obviously changed the course of my life. But to get back on track, that intent and the message, as you do integrate it, and you're trying to explain it to people, or you're trying to rationalize it, or you're trying to kind of, think like, why would I get this message and what does it mean? You essentially start to sound like a religious nut. I think that's when it really started to click for me. I was like, oh, hang on a minute. Every time I try to explain this or rationalize it or work through what does it mean, I'm reminded of religious stories, of religious texts. And I'm not really that, like, I grew up in an atheist home. Like, I don't really know much about religion, and it's really just from, other people and hearing bits and bobs and pieces. You kind of get a rough idea, of, speaking to God and Moses or Jesus and all these different people, the Hindu gods. Like you have bits and pieces all over the place. So you kind of scramble it together and you just start to feel like, hang on a minute, there's this common theme here. It's not just in religion, but also just like history, I think like when it really kind of like hit for me is a few weeks actually after I had one of these really profound experiences. I was in Mexico. I was walking through Chichen Itza, of all places, and I was looking at some of the imagery just carved on the walls and stuff. It's like, it's too much of a coincidence. like this is it. Like this is the same kind of like waiting room. Like this is the imagery. And I was thinking about, I've been in the pyramids at Giza, and they're onto something too. I remember I was like Googling just like religious imagery. Like, I think I literally just typed it in. I mean, I was typing like Islamic imagery, and I typed in like Hindu imagery. I just did them all. And I was just like, hang on a minute. This is it. This is it. So it kind of really made you think like, right. Hang on a minute. This experience is obviously something that we have been experiencing a lot. And it seems to have possibly influenced, maybe all religions everywhere. Again, it's just me spitballing a bit, but I'm just trying to integrate this, this message and the whole experience and how real it is and how bizarre and abstract and how it just stands independent from everything. Like, it feels like there has to be a reason why this is here. So what am I getting at? Is it a message? Because in some ways, it would be perfect. It would be perfect that there was a way that all humans could receive a message that articulated some type of explanation for reality and gave you some meaning and purpose. It would be beautiful that that was somehow in the ecosystem and encoded within you, and it was possible to unlock it and just experience it, maybe on a regular basis, which some people have done, and still do, around the world. But then you think, well, what do you mean a message? That level of intent means someone put it there? Has someone been here and deliberately made it so that we would get this message? Like, has this message always been inside us, or was there a particular point in history in which it was delivered? Then you start getting into a little bit far-fetched. It's like, are we talking about aliens here? I think this is why the experience really kind of gets to people, because it's like the most profound underlying question for all of us who think about these things. Why are we here? And what's the point of it all? To be delivered a message that could potentially explain that is pretty big. And so you really have to start thinking like, why and how? What's it from? So I'm very confident that, this has been here for a very long time. And so if anything, the religion has come from us having it within us. And it's almost as if religion, I see it now as like, oh, this is a process of trying to unravel this message. And I think over the thousands of years of us doing that, we kind of lost the original message, like how it all started. And now we're just stuck in the analysis and practice of these kind of rituals, and we just forgot why. But it's like, there's still always a tiny little bit of doubt in your mind of like, it could have been put there. Now I have to be a rational scientist here as well. Because there's also that little nagging part of your brain. It's just like, what if it's just a fluke? And I thought about this a lot. What if it's just a weird quirk of nature? When you ingest this compound, which does exist in your body already, by the way, not at unreasonable levels. Like, I think we're talking on the par of sort of serotonin, dopamine, all that sort of stuff. DMT does exist in your brain. We just don't know how it works, what it does exactly. But let's just say you are ingesting a larger quantity of DMT. It's just a fluke. It's just a fluke that you are randomly kind of like causing some sort of like neurochemical explosion in your brain, yeah? And then just for whatever reason, this whole kind of flooding of these chemicals into your brain just happens to create this experience for almost everybody. I mean, even as I say it, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like, what would be the chances? I mean, what a cruel, cruel cosmic joke that by fluke there's a message that offers you like a glimpse of something wonderful, some potential meaning to all of this. It's not impossible. It's not impossible that that's what it is. But oh my God, look what's happened. Thousands of years of just religions and wars and trying to decipher these messages. I'm so confident that's where these stories have come from. Having been there, and anybody who doesn't believe me is like, have you been there, had the experience? If you haven't, you don't have a comment really. Once you've had that experience, I'll be very surprised if you did not see the obvious connection to nearly all religious stories and tales. So if that's a cosmic joke, just a coincidence, a random quirk of biology and neurochemistry, I mean, wow, that really fucked us as a species. It really, really did. What's left? I must admit, there have been some moments, especially in the waiting room, but when I haven't been like really full on, face to face, communicating and having this interaction with an alien. But when I've kind of just been shown things and schematics, and I've been looking at strange things, like there have been moments where I thought, am I witnessing my own brain? Like, am I observing my brain work? Now, this sounds a bit strange, but imagine you were like, a computer, or like you're part of a computer, like you're the processor, but you were able to like visually represent like what you were doing, yeah? Moving bits and bytes around, doing things like memory storage and retrieving this and, putting that through, compiling whatever, yeah? You're a processor. If you could see that, like model it, like what does it mean to be this processor? Like what are the rules? And if you could see that, like, it feels a little bit like that sometimes. I have felt, because you're so present, again, like I'm completely sober, lucid in these experiences, like quite literally looking at the stuff. And yeah, I have thought to myself, I'm like, again, this doesn't really explain the kind of intense face-to-face kind of message that you're getting, but again, I thought to myself, well, what if that's me? Maybe because of the state I'm in, it's doing something to my brain that is putting me into a kind of like naive frame. So me reflecting on my own self, my own ego, my own consciousness, my own knowledge. Maybe I'm looking at my own knowledge. I'm looking at the internal workings of my mind and my brain. Because it's abstract, it's not been made for me as an English-speaking human. It's like this is millions and millions of years of evolution. Like I experience it in this abstract way. So it's kind of like a kind of anthropomorphic figure. But the rules and the kind of schematics don't mean anything to me. Why would they? It's evolved as a system to process information. I mean, again, it sounds kind of a bit crazy. And, it doesn't really kind of explain it, but I leave the door open there. Like, what could this be? What am I reflecting on? What am I so clearly, with my open eyes, looking at? Sometimes I feel like I come back and just sketch what I saw. Like, what are these diagrams? Why am I being shown this? What does it mean? What are you trying to tell me? Like, am I losing my mind looking at myself? Am I looking at the workings of my mind and I'm just like, is this a message from God? I don't know. This video could just go on forever, to be honest. But the purpose of it really was just to kind of, for anyone who hasn't had the experience, it was just to kind of explain that. It's like, this is why it's weird. This is why people won't stop talking about it. This is why it's so life-changing and just, can't stop thinking about it. It's because it just stands alone from all the beautiful, crazy, abstract, wonderful experiences that are out there. It's just like, what? It's utterly bizarre. And, I'm definitely going to dedicate a video to kind of some detail about, some particular experiences that have really had a profound effect on my life. But yeah, I hope it kind of gives a little bit of a high-level kind of view of the aesthetics. Just the differences in the textures and the quality and just the space that we're in. But yeah, next time you're watching The Matrix and Neo steps into the architect, you better know that's a little bit closer to home than you might realise.